Gone Home is a narrative first-person exploration game that puts you into the shoes of an older sister coming back from a year-long Europe trip to an empty home with cryptic notes scattered around the premises by an apologetic and absent little sister. This game is so atmospherically beautiful, both in terms of sound and surroundings. It's one of the most narratively strong games I've ever played. The experience is honestly comparable to reading a book with all of its nuanced environmental details, compelling character portrayals, and engaging storytelling mechanisms embedded into the world you're exploring. The game is very accessible and guided. It's not too easy that it's boring, but it's definitely more of the story pulling you along than the challenge. I was expecting a more open world where you would need to figure out and memorize many details, but the backpack and map hold your hand enough to make it pretty easy to breeze through the story. Not that you want to. There were only one or two times where I felt lost and confused on what to do next, but for most of the game, I just wanted to read more and more about everything around me. For the sake of the stream, I had to keep reminding myself to suppress urges to go off into a random area and look around when I knew I was supposed to be headed in a specific direction to discover more of the storyline. One of my favorite aspects of the game was how faceless Katie, the main character, is. Because it's in first person, you don't really see her outside of the passport and family portrait. She never says anything besides that initial voicemail and a few postcards here and there. Because of how faceless she is, the player is allowed to just run into the story, discover bits and pieces, and react to it on their own without any supplemental information on how they should be feeling. There are no tears or laughter other than your own. The hover text occasionally includes some flavoring, like, "Gosh, Dad," when hovering the cursor over the porn magazines. But for me, that didn't break the illusion that I was the one standing in that house. The developers and writers did such a great job in creating such amazingly well-rounded and relatable characters. The impression we walk away with is that this is a very real, very broken, and very problematic family. And even on an individual level, each character has their own legs to stand on. As very real, very broken, and very problematic people, they're all struggling with their own demons as well as their own petty frustrations. If you watched my recap video, know that it only covered the very bare bones of the main storyline. In its compressed state, the video is unable to show any of the endearing, funny, and resonant characteristics of the family members that exist in the game. Katie's father is involved in some sketchy tech review arrangements and writes historical science fiction as his passion. He's currently focused on the JFK assassination, time travel, and killing Hitler. Their parents' failing relationship leaves amusing evidence of disinterest and disloyalty, but also portrays a real dynamic of juggling parenthood, struggling with self-fulfillment, and feelings of inadequacy. Evidence of Oscar and his Mason's pharmacy litter the hallways so subtly, yet so pervasively that it's unsettling to think back on it. There's also an adorable motif of a short story about a pirate and her first mate that follows Sam throughout her life, showing her evolution as a creative writer as well as the changes she experiences in her own self-perception. There are also so many developments of Sam and Lonnie's love story that have been left out of the video, cute class notes, falling in love, and feeling in love. To continue the book analogy, that video was like the short 1.5-hour movie of an entire 4-book cycle. And I just know there must be so much I haven't even touched. Okay, so a couple notes towards how this game could be improved. The beginning was very, very slow to me. There was a complete lack of urgency, and the notes were just too vague for me to care. I really felt like I was walking around mostly because I was stuck there. The narrative was definitely designed to be back-heavy, so for the first quarter of the game, I was really wondering if I was going to be able to get through the rest of it. Fortunately, though, it snowballed into a much more thrilling chase for answers, mostly after I found Steggy. The repeated use of Psycho House really bothered me. Oscar adds a very cute and spooky spirit, somewhat literally, to the story and the house, but I don't think that effect warranted such a strong, stigma-charged, and honestly ableist word. There isn't evidence, that I found at least, that Oscar had any mental illness, only that he was a loner. Though, I don't know whether it would be better or worse if he did. The label of Psycho House served mainly to further ostracize Sam at school, since on top of being the new girl, she was also the Psycho House girl. But come on, if this is high school, there are so many ways to ostracize a teenage girl without throwing neuroatypical people under the bus. There's a green sugar skull in the trophy case downstairs. We find out later that it's a souvenir gift to Sam from Lonnie's trip to Mexico. In reality, sugar skulls are very meaningful objects used during the Day of the Dead, a holiday that honors those who have passed away. I would not consider it a cute or exotic token of affection, or even an appropriate souvenir frivolously purchased as something to bring back to your girlfriend. I mean, maybe Sam and Lonnie are just being portrayed as being problematic and unthinking teenagers, which they probably are, but I rather doubt that's the point being made here. I think it's insulting to use something as meaningful as the sugar skull, a symbol of a holiday that is so significant and personal to many Mexican people and families, as a cheap, exotic gift. This one might just be my own perception, but Sam's voice sounds so much older than 16 or 17. This isn't necessarily problematic, just an observation. For me, it did serve the purpose of selling the love story better, because realistically, running away with your high school significant other is almost always a terrible idea. The world actually would keep moving without Lonnie. They might still end up together, or they can find other partners. Much of their all or nothing thinking is very juvenile, but because the voice sounded so much more mature, it helped me look past it. I don't really know if that's a good or bad thing. And also, I guess the reality is that many queer kids get cut off from their families in other ways. So this was one way for them to take that power back? I don't know. I suppose the ending follows a pretty common trope of lovers running away from their oppressive parents and adds a lesbian twist to it, which isn't a terrible thing. I guess I just so frequently see all these stories of young queer people ending in death or running away, both in fiction and in real life, and it makes me wonder what message that's supposed to be sending us. I would definitely like to hear what y'all have to think on this one. Anyways, after 2.5 hours of gameplay, so many more hours of editing and rewatching footage, I'm still ready to go back into the game to look for more things, find more keys and passcodes, and revisit the notes. I definitely recommend playing this game even if you're not typically a gamer. It's unique, beautiful, and resonant, especially for anyone who has felt not quite safe as themselves when at home. Thanks for watching my review of Gone Home. Make sure you subscribe for more videos on games featuring awesome queer, POC, or female characters. Thanks again, and see you soon!